She worked as a cleaner in a high-end restaurant nestled in the heart of downtown Atlanta. Every night, after her shift ended, she quietly asked for leftover food, never taking more than what she needed. No one ever knew where she went after work or what she did with the food. But one night, her wealthy boss grew curious. He decided to secretly follow her, and what he discovered brought tears to his eyes. Who was this humble woman, really? What silent struggles was she hiding beneath her quiet, polite demeanor? Sit back and discover the powerful truth behind her life. In a bustling corner of Atlanta stood an elegant glass-fronted restaurant called the Silver Oak. With modern lighting and polished marble floors, the place sparkled under the night sky. Luxury cars like Teslas and Mercedes lined the curb, and inside, wealthy guests sipped wine and dined on gourmet dishes. The owner of the Silver Oak was Mr. Robert Stanton, known to his staff as Mr. Stanton or simply Sir. He was incredibly wealthy, always dressed in tailored navy suits and shining Oxford shoes. When he entered the building each morning, employees greeted him respectfully, "Good morning, sir," to which he'd simply nod and say, "Carry on." He was a quiet observer, always taking in details with sharp eyes. Mr. Stanton drove a sleek black Cadillac Escalade, freshly waxed and spotless. The restaurant employed over 60 people, chefs, servers, hosts, and janitorial staff. Despite the luxury and success, something unexpected was about to unfold. It was a late Wednesday night. The restaurant had closed, and only a few staff remained tidying up. The city lights reflected on the glass walls. Mr. Stanton emerged from his upstairs office, exhausted. He loosened his tie, yawned slightly, and stepped down the stairs toward the parking lot. As he pressed his car remote, the Escalade chirped back. But something caught his attention, a woman standing quietly near the vehicle. Not close enough to touch it, but close enough to raise questions. She was in uniform, khaki pants and a forest green polo with the Silver Oaks logo. Her posture was still, eyes cast downward, hands clasped together. Mr. Stanton paused, narrowing his eyes. "Who's that?" he muttered. Only a few janitors remained sweeping the back terrace. Curious and concerned, he walked slowly toward the woman. She looked up briefly, then lowered her gaze again. "You work in cleaning, right?" he asked. "Yes, sir," she replied softly. "My name's Emily." She didn't lift her head, fingers fidgeting nervously. Mr. Stanton looked puzzled. "Why are you standing near my car, Emily?" She hesitated, bit her lip, then drew a shaky breath. "Please, sir," she said gently, "I want to ask for a small favor." Mr. Stanton stood still, arms crossed, waiting, half expecting a request for money or maybe a complaint. But Emily's voice barely rose above a whisper. "Would it be all right if I took some of the leftover food home tonight?" she asked. Mr. Stanton blinked. For a moment, he said nothing. "Just leftover food?" He stared at her. "Is that all you want?" Emily nodded. "Yes, sir. Just the leftover food. If there's any." There was silence, the kind that makes your chest feel tight. Mr. Stanton looked at her again. She looked exhausted. Her sneakers were worn out. Her voice was soft. He gave a small nod. "Okay," he said. Emily whispered, "Thank you, sir," and quickly turned around, heading back into the kitchen. Mr. Stanton stood beside his Cadillac Escalade. He didn't get in. He just stood there, staring at the kitchen door. Something inside his heart had stirred, and he didn't know why. He eventually got into the SUV but didn't start the engine. He watched her walk back into the building. The parking lot was still and quiet. He leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes for a moment, but his mind wouldn't rest. The question kept repeating. Why would a worker ask for leftover food, not money, not help, not a raise, just food? He opened his eyes and stared at the restaurant entrance. Something didn't feel right. He thought about Emily's voice. It wasn't weak, it was tired. And the look in her eyes was like someone silently carrying pain. He checked the time. It was nearly 10 p.m. Still, he didn't drive off. He wanted to see where she would go. He needed to understand why this request felt so heavy. "I'll wait," he said to himself. About 10 minutes passed. Then the kitchen door opened again. Emily stepped out, holding 2 small plastic grocery bags. They didn't seem heavy. She clutched them to her chest and began walking quickly. Mr. Stanton slid lower in his seat and waited until she was farther away. Then he slowly turned the key. The Escalade rumbled to life, but he left the headlights off. He drove slowly, keeping a safe distance, far enough so she wouldn't hear the engine, but close enough to follow. Emily walked with purpose. After several blocks, she reached a city bus stop and boarded a faded blue Metro bus. Mr. Stanton followed behind as it pulled away. The ride was long, and the roads on that side of town were cracked and uneven. Street lights flickered, some completely dead. But he stayed close. After nearly 30 minutes, the bus finally stopped in a rough part of town, somewhere near the outskirts of East Atlanta. Emily stepped off the bus and started walking down a narrow, cracked pavement. Mr. Stanton parked a few houses back and turned off the engine. He stepped out quietly. There were no stores around. No lights. Just silence. He walked a few feet forward and saw Emily approaching a rundown duplex. The paint was peeling. The porch sagged. The windows were either cracked or covered with makeshift curtains. He stood frozen. "This is her home," he whispered. It didn't look like a place someone lived. It looked abandoned. He took a breath and stepped back, his heart full of questions he couldn't answer. From the shadows, he watched the warped front door creak open. Suddenly, two little girls ran out barefoot and smiling. "Mommy," the first one cried. "You're home," the second shouted. Emily dropped the grocery bags and pulled them into her arms, hugging them tightly. Her smile stretched wide, but her eyes were weary. She kissed their foreheads. "I'm here, my babies," she said gently. "I brought something for you." Mr. Stanton's heart pounded. "She has kids," he murmured, stunned. Emily took the girls by the hand and led them inside. Through a gap in the curtain, Mr. Stanton could see her place a worn-out mat on the wooden floor. She sat them down and unpacked the bags. Inside was one piece of fried chicken and a small box of leftover mac and cheese. She split the food in half, placing it on 2 plastic plates. The girls began eating fast, their faces lighting up with joy. But Emily didn't eat. She just sat there, smiling at them. Mr. Stanton blinked back a tear. She brought food but didn't eat. He stared at the girls, then at her. She was hungry but gave it all to them. He shook his head slowly. Something was breaking inside him. He turned away, standing in the dark, tears rising. He looked back once more. She was still smiling, still watching them with love, and still not eating. Mr. Stanton touched his chest. "She took food only for them," he whispered. His throat tightened. He looked down at his polished shoes. He didn't feel powerful anymore. He felt small. Slowly, he walked back to his car. The night was silent except for the sound of distant sirens and chirping insects. He climbed into the driver's seat and didn't start the engine. He sat there, overwhelmed, staring at the broken home. "I have to do something. I can't just leave her like this," he whispered. After a long moment, he turned on the ignition. The lights came on, and he drove away slowly, glancing at the house one last time in the rearview mirror. That night, he couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned in his king-sized bed, haunted by the image of Emily, those 2 little girls, and the small plate of leftovers. The next morning, the sunlight crept into the tiny room where Emily and her daughters lay. She woke early and smiled at her sleeping children. "Time to wake up, angels," she whispered. They opened their eyes slowly. "Are we going to school today, Mommy?" one asked. "Yes, baby. Let's get ready." Emily helped them up and took them outside to a shared water spout. She washed them quickly with water poured into a plastic tub, dried them with a threadbare towel, and dressed them in faded school uniforms. She brushed their hair into neat ponytails. Then she heated the tiny portion of rice left from the night before on a small gas burner and served it in 2 little plastic bowls. "Eat this before we go," she said with a soft smile. The girls ate quietly, cross-legged on the floor. Emily packed their school books and handed each of them a small water bottle. They stepped outside together, the sun now shining bright. The school wasn't far. It was an aging public elementary school with no fence and broken windows, but the girls were happy. She knelt, hugged them, and kissed their cheeks. "Be good, okay? I'll see you soon." The girls waved and ran inside. Emily turned and walked away toward the bus stop. She had to be on time. At the restaurant, she changed into her uniform, tied on her apron, and joined the cleaning team. She swept, mopped, wiped down every surface until it sparkled. Her hands moved fast. She didn't look sad or tired. She even smiled at coworkers. That morning, Mr. Stanton sat quietly in his office, staring out the window, not seeing anything. His mind was filled with Emily. He picked up his phone and called the HR manager. "Good morning, sir," the man said. Mr. Stanton's voice was calm but serious. "We need to do better," he said. "Sir, our staff. Some of them are going through things we don't even know. Start this month, raise their pay. Make sure no one here ever goes home hungry." "Yes, sir," the HR replied, taken aback. Mr. Stanton leaned back in his leather chair, closed his eyes, and saw Emily again, smiling at her daughters while she sat hungry on the floor. He opened his eyes slowly and whispered, "She didn't even eat." Days passed. Emily kept coming to work early at a small diner on the outskirts of Springfield, Illinois. She swept the tile floors carefully, wiped each table as if it were in her own home. She was never late, never frowned, and never asked for anything more than the leftover food at the end of the day. Every evening, when the restaurant was closing, she would quietly walk to the back door, knock gently, and ask the kitchen staff, "Hey, is there any leftover food tonight?" Sometimes it was just a small portion of mac and cheese or some mashed potatoes, but she never complained. She always smiled, said, "Thank you," and packed the food into a reusable grocery bag before walking home. Mr. Stanton, the owner of the diner, had been watching her quietly from a distance. He hadn't spoken to her yet, just observed. Every day, his heart grew heavier, and each night he wondered, how many people are struggling like her? One morning, while Emily was cleaning the tables, the head cook approached her. "The boss wants to see you," he said. Emily looked up quickly, her heart pounding. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked softly. The cook shook his head. "I don't know, just go and see him." Emily wiped her hands on her apron and walked slowly to Mr. Stanton's office. She knocked gently. "Come in," Mr. Stanton said. Emily stepped inside, looking nervous. "Good morning, sir," she said quietly. "Please, have a seat, Emily," Mr. Stanton said with a kind smile. She sat down slowly, unsure of what to expect. There was a pause. Then Mr. Stanton said gently, "Emily, I followed you one evening." Her eyes widened in confusion. "You followed me?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "I saw where you live. I saw your two little girls." Emily looked down at the floor, her hands trembling. Tears filled her eyes as she wiped them quickly. "I wasn't trying to cause trouble," she said in a quiet voice. "I'm just trying to take care of my kids." Mr. Stanton shook his head. "You've done nothing wrong," he said. Looking her in the eyes, he added, "You're a strong mother. You work hard. You're doing your best." Emily couldn't speak. She began to cry softly. Then Mr. Stanton said, "I want to help you." She looked up, tears in her eyes. The next day, Mr. Stanton called her into the office again. She walked in slowly, still unsure. "Emily," he said with a smile, "I have good news." He handed her a piece of paper. She looked at it closely. It said, "Promotion, Executive Assistant to the Owner." She looked up, confused. "You are now my assistant," Mr. Stanton said. "You'll be earning a much better salary starting today." Emily covered her mouth, and tears rolled down her cheeks again. "That's not all," he continued. He stood and picked up a large envelope from his desk. "I bought a small apartment for you and your daughters," he said gently. "It's not huge, but it's safe, clean, and in a good neighborhood." Emily's hands began to shake. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You won't have to sleep on the floor anymore," Mr. Stanton added. "There's running water, electricity, and space for your girls to read and rest." Emily put her hands over her heart. "Sir," she whispered, "is this really for us?" Mr. Stanton nodded. "You deserve this and more. You're a hard-working mother, and you never once complained." He continued, "I'm also enrolling your daughters in a better school. And from now on, you'll never need to ask for food again." Emily dropped to her knees, tears pouring down her face. "Thank you, sir, thank you so much. I don't know what to say," she cried. Mr. Stanton smiled kindly. He opened his drawer and pulled out a small white envelope. "Here," he said. "Buy something nice for dinner tonight." Emily accepted the envelope with both hands and held it tightly to her chest. "God bless you, sir," she whispered through her tears. Mr. Stanton nodded. "You've earned this, Emily." That night, the little apartment where they still lived for the moment smelled different. It smelled like happiness. Emily stood in front of the small electric stove, stirring a pot of chicken and rice. Real chicken. Her daughters sat at the fold-out table, watching eagerly. "Mommy, you got a whole bunch of chicken," the younger one shouted. Emily turned and smiled. "Yes, sweetheart. Tonight we eat well." When dinner was ready, she served it on 3 real plates. The girls grabbed theirs quickly and dug in. "Mommy, this is the best food ever," the older one said between bites. "I love it," the younger added, her mouth full. "It tastes like magic." Emily sat beside them, quietly smiling. Tears welled up in her eyes but didn't fall. For the first time in a long time, she watched her daughters eat and laugh without worry. And that was enough. The next morning, something surprising happened. A shiny black SUV pulled up in front of their worn-down building. Emily stepped outside with her girls' backpacks in hand, confused. The driver stepped out and smiled. "Good morning, ma'am. Mr. Stanton sent me. I'm here to take you to your new home." Emily stood frozen for a moment. Then she turned to her daughters. "Get your things," she said, her voice shaking. "We're moving." They all got into the car together. The ride was quiet, but their hearts were loud with joy. When they reached the new apartment, the girls jumped out and ran to the front door. The house was freshly painted, the windows opened easily, and inside were clean hardwood floors, a working kitchen, and soft, warm beds. The girls ran from room to room, shouting, "Mommy, we have our own beds. Look, a real kitchen. We don't have to sleep on the floor anymore." Emily stood in the middle of the cozy living room. She turned slowly, taking in the soft carpet, the cream-colored walls, and the warm afternoon sunlight spilling through the blinds. Then she gently sat down on one of the brand-new chairs. For a moment, she just looked up and whispered, "Thank you, God. Thank you." Her journey wasn't over, but something beautiful had begun, and this time, it began with hope. Emily sat quietly on the padded recliner in her new apartment just outside Chicago. The house was peaceful, almost too peaceful for her to believe it was real. The girls were playing on the floor with throw pillows, giggling. Emily smiled, watching them, her heart full. She still couldn't believe this place was theirs. She looked at the ceiling and whispered, "God, I thank you. I really thank you." Just then her phone buzzed. She picked it up and looked at the screen. It was Mr. Stanton. Her heartbeat quickened slightly. She quickly answered, "Good morning, sir." Mr. Stanton's warm voice came through the speaker. "Emily," he said, "I just wanted to check on you and your girls." "We're doing great, sir." "Thank you again for everything," Emily replied sincerely. There was a pause, then Mr. Stanton said, "Emily, don't come to work today." Emily's eyes widened in surprise. "Sir?" she asked. "Take the day off," he said kindly. "Enjoy your new home. Cook something special. Sit with your daughters. Today is for you." Emily pressed her hand against her chest. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much," she whispered. "You've earned it, Emily," Mr. Stanton said. "Enjoy your day." The call ended, and Emily held the phone to her heart for a moment. Then she stood up and walked into the kitchen. It smelled faintly of lemon-scented cleaner and fresh paint. She opened one of the cabinets, took out a bag of long-grain rice and some fresh vegetables she had picked up the night before. As she started to prep the meal, the girls wandered in, still smiling. "Mommy, what are you making?" one of them asked. Emily turned and looked at them with pure love. "Our first meal in this house," she said gently. She reached out and held their tiny hands. "But before we eat," she said softly, "let's thank God again." The girls nodded. They all closed their eyes, and with simple words and hearts full of gratitude, they prayed. Their road had been long and painful, but a new life had begun, and it started with faith, kindness, and love. Dear viewer, this story reminds us of something powerful. Kindness can truly change lives. Sometimes the person working beside you, the one who doesn't speak much, who never asks for help, may be quietly fighting a battle you can't see. Emily didn't beg, and she didn't steal. She worked hard, stayed humble, prayed quietly, and kept going even when life was almost too heavy to carry. And Mr. Stanton? He didn't ignore her pain. He chose to see it, to reach out, and that choice changed everything. The lesson is simple. If you can help someone, please do. Even one small act of kindness can light up an entire family's world. What did this story teach you? Please drop your thoughts in the comments section. I would truly love to read them. And guess what? Another deeply moving story is coming in just a few days, so please subscribe to the channel and turn on your notification bell so you'll be the first to know when it's posted. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with someone you care about. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate you.